Hello and welcome to Sterling's Dell Technologies PowerStore and PowerScale demo. I'm Megan Moore, the Director of Strategic Programs for Sterling. We know your time is valuable, so we want to say thank you for choosing to spend a portion of your day with Sterling. Before we dive into the demo, I wanted to give you a brief overview of Sterling's capabilities. Sterling is a technology solution provider offering secured, customized solutions to all of your client-to-cloud needs. We serve on multiple federal, state, and local government contracts and support all industry verticals. Security is extremely important here at Sterling. We have a robust secure supply chain, including OTIPs and CMMC certifications. For any questions about Sterling, please use the email aliases you will find at the end of the demo. For questions during the demo, please put them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will address them at the end. Now I will turn it over to Enterprise Engineer Greg Stewart to demonstrate PowerStore and PowerScale.
Okay, thank you. Let me get my okay. So yeah, thank you for joining. This is a great opportunity to share with you some really good technologies that Dell's put out, which is PowerStore and PowerScale. And we're going to cover both. And just to give you just a level set here before we start this, there's a lot of information to cover on both of these technologies. And so we're going to cover them in kind of a 30,000-foot overview, and we'll dive into some of the demos on these, but we won't be able to really cover them in depth. So if there is something that you'd like to see, if there are questions that you have, please ask them in the Q&A section of the meeting, and we can get those questions answered. And if you'd like to have a little bit more of a deeper dive demo, we can also schedule one of those as well. But we're going to try and squeeze both of these technologies into this singular demo here. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to look at today is PowerStore. PowerStore, there's three reasons why you would choose PowerStore. So the first reason is that PowerStore is data-centric. It combines end-to-end NVMe drives and storage, leading-edge hardware design, and scale-up, scale-out capabilities, while also including a 4-to-1 data reduction guarantee, which is a great cost savings to the end user. Secondly, PowerStore is intelligent. There's intelligence behind PowerStore units, and that is there's automation and simplified management that drives efficiency, and it lowers operating costs. So with the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, the PowerStore units are able to analyze and evaluate the resource levels and application demands that are going on, and the storage use that is happening in order to maintain system balance and actually improve performance. So PowerStore will build a baseline of activity on the unit based on what's going on inside of your environment, and then it will, through AI and machine learning, just balance that out and increase performance where it needs it and reduce it where it really doesn't need it. And it utilizes Cloud IQ also to proactively monitor storage use. So Cloud IQ is a built-in feature of PowerStore that you can utilize to manage and monitor your usage, your storage usage. And then lastly, well, at least not last, is it's adaptable. Okay, so it enables speed and application mobility with apps on, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So applications can actually run directly on the appliance, utilizing VMware's ESXi hypervisor. So you can actually run your applications on PowerStore. It's not your typical storage array. It does a whole lot more than just offering storage to your hypervisor or to your organization. So let's take a look at two different types of deployments for PowerStore. The first one would be a standard deployment, and this gives you a picture of what that rack mountable unit looks like. There's a PowerStore, and it has NVMe all flash or SCM which optimizes performance. There's always on data reduction, and that's that 4-to-1 guarantee for data reduction to improve performance and lower your costs. And PowerStore in the standard deployment, it allows for native support for block, file, vvols, or containers. So it gives you a wide variety of options to choose from when you're going to schedule or when you're going to configure your storage with PowerStore. Scaling up and scaling out to add performance or capacity independently is super easy to do. Adding units, just scaling up, you can just add units to the rack and continue to build out your storage infrastructure. And then the anytime upgrades keep that PowerStore continuously modern without disruption. So there's lifecycle management built into it. And that's through the PowerStore team models that you see on the left in a more standard deployment. Now, as we look on the right, there's the hypervisor deployment, which is where we're going to start seeing things where we can utilize apps on. And in the hypervisor deployment for PowerStore, it gives you flexibility to run those applications directly on your PowerStore with that apps on feature. So there's still NVMe all flash or SCM. You still get the 4-to-1 guarantee for always on data reduction. And the difference between the standard deployment and hypervisor deployment is that there's actually a built-in VMware ESXi hypervisor, which supports external hosts and local apps while at the same time, all at the same time for unprecedented mobility and operational consistency. So having the ability to actually have the hypervisor on your storage array is a huge bonus and can give you a lot of flexibility in building apps actually on the storage array itself. And then again, just the same as a standard deployment, those anytime upgrades, lifecycle management helps you to stay modern with that. So I'm going to now go into the look at the PowerScale. And what we'll do is we'll go through each of these, look at the features of them, and then I'll demo them each individually. So PowerScale, Dell PowerScale, gives you simplicity at any scale. It lowers the cost and it uses that future-proof scale-out architecture to provision capacity and performance only when you need it. So scaling out is a piece of cake. Any data anywhere is the flexibility to run a wide variety of workloads with each, basically speaking a different language of protocol, whether that's SMB, CIFS, or any other type of file share. And then it allows the client and any user, the ability to collaborate on the same files at the same time, which in today's day and age, with this whole pandemic situation we're in, where everybody is working from everywhere and still needing the capability to collaborate on files, on the same files all at the same time, PowerScale offers that flexibility. And then lastly is the intelligent insight. So again, just like PowerStore, you can use Cloud IQ to proactively monitor your storage use, performance, and health. And again, it builds out that baseline and then watches proactively to see where there are needs to improve performance, to add more storage, or to scale back a little bit. So there's there are some similarities between the two, but as we start to look more into it, you'll see how different they are. And we'll go to the next one and I'll show you. This is basically a couple different versions of the PowerScale. And these are all flash nodes. So the PowerScale F900, you can see there is a 2U rack mounted storage array. And then the F200 there and the F600 are both 1U. And the F200 PowerScale is actually what we have in our Sterling Solution Center. We have 3 of those in the Sterling Solution Center, and we're utilizing those to do demos and to create shares and to do all those things and create customer specific demos so that we can show the power behind these units. And so you can see there are options here, and also not listed on here is the Isilon options that are also within this family that you can use to also build out your storage. They're much bigger units. These ones here are specifically for PowerScale, and these are the nodes. So let's take a look specifically at the PowerScale F200, since that's the unit that we have in our Solutions Center that we'll be able to demonstrate for you. Okay, so some of the attributes to this are your raw node capacity is, if you look at on the small side or on the minimum side, is 3.84 terabytes. And it goes all the way up to 30.72 terabytes, and that is per node. So you can see that at the high end, the 30.72 terabytes, those are 7.68 terabyte SSD drives. Okay, and then SSD or non-SED drives or 2.5 inch ones per node. You can do 4 per node. The operating system that runs on these systems is called 1FS, PowerScale 1FS. And the latest is 9.2, but it's 9.0 or later that's going to be running on these F200s. It's a single socket Intel processor. There is a 48 or 96 gigabyte variety of ECC RAM memory. And your networking, what comes on board is a dual port 25 gig NIC, which supports either 10G or 25G connections. And that's with that SFP plus or SFP28. Your infrastructure networking per node is you get 2 InfiniBand connections with QDR links, or you can get dual port 25 gig NICs supporting 10G or 25G connections. Your power consumption on those is 239 watts. That's your max power consumption is 200 to 240 volts per node with a thermic rating of 815.5 BTUs per hour. So that kind of gives you an overview of the hardware and what that looks like and what your minimums and maximums are. And, you have the flexibility to build out your PowerScale however you see, however it fits your needs in your own environment. So let's switch to the demo here, and we will start with the PowerScale demo. Let me just pull it up here. There we go. I'm going to have to share this screen. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share out my other screen here. Okay, so now you should be able to see. You should be able to see my 1FS here. And again, 1FS is the operating system for these PowerScales. And so when you log into your, you hit it and you go to port 8080 on your IP address, that takes you to your PowerScale manager, your storage administration, which is 1FS. And as you can see, it starts you off here on the dashboard. And the dashboard shows you several things, and there's not a ton that's configured here since this is a demo unit, but you can see that it's highly configurable. So cluster status, everything seems to be okay. There's a little bit of a warning here that your license entitlements may have been exceeded. So you would look at that, and then you can click on the tab to go to node status. And this is pretty small. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit here. Zoom in. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So on your node status here, it shows you node 1 of your Cloud IQ. It'll show you down here the status of your node interfaces, your EXT1. This is the networking pool 0, subnet 0, and it gives you your IP address and your IOPS, what's going in and out. On the right-hand side, you can see your throughput and CPU. Okay. And then on the node size here, most importantly, it shows you of your hard drive what's available and what's used. So right now, we're only using 29% of the capacity of this node here. But it will tell you here that, it gives you the model exactly, the configuration, the serial number, all great things. If you have to go to support, you can find right here under node status on the dashboard. Down at the very bottom, there's another little widget here that gives you the active client connections. That's helpful to see what you have connecting to your storage. And right now things are pretty quiet since we don't have a lot of connections going to it. And then it shows you your CPU usage on the bottom here. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but it gives you a time frame of your CPU usage here, tells you, what's being used, the system, the user, etc.
Hey,
And you can show the average of the maximum.
Seeing your proven performance page, Sterling's proven performance page.
Oh, okay.
Yep, different screen.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No big deal. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, can you see the 1FS page now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my apologies. Sorry about that. So what I was talking about, now that you can actually see it, is the dashboard of your PowerScale. So this is the 1FS files. This is your operating system, 1FS, storage administration. The initial tab is the cluster status. Gives you any warnings or things that you need to look at or change. Shows you Cloud IQ down here, which is your monitoring, right? Cloud IQ gives you proactive monitoring, and it will tell you your IOPS, how much of your hard drive is used, the space, how much SSD is used, and then throughput and CPU down here on the bottom right-hand corner. And then the storage efficiency widget here shows you your physical usage versus your logical usage. And then the cluster size right here. So currently there's 50% of the HDD available. The VHS is at 86 and HDD used is 67 gigs. On the tab here, node status that I was talking about earlier gives you your very first widget here, gives you some important information. It gives you the model number, the serial number, the uptime. This all comes in handy if you have to go to support. They're going to ask for these things. So it's good to know where that is. And it gives you on the right-hand side a widget that will show you the node size, how much is available versus how much is used. Your node interfaces, as far as networking goes, your IOPS, and the IP address here, the pool and the subnet that you're configured in. And then another one here that gives you that file system throughput. And then on the bottom is the CPU usage. Earlier, I was talking about the active client connections. You can see the active client connections. Right now, it's a pretty quiet system. We don't have a lot of client connections going to it, but that would be helpful in troubleshooting or finding out, who's connected at any given point in time. So that's the dashboard view. So we'll switch gears, and each one of these drop downs has a lot of great information, and we'll go through a little bit on each of them. But you can see here that on the dashboard that we just looked at, the cluster overview, access overview, and then Dell Technologies support is a huge one. That's where you can gather logs and get the information that support would need if you have to troubleshoot an issue. So cluster management tab, if I go to general settings under cluster management, that takes me to a bunch of settings here that we can see. It gives you the cluster GUID, the cluster name, a bunch of other information that you can fill in, stuff for SNMP email settings that you can use to throw, SNMP traps to give you updates and alerts. Here's where you configure date and time, NTP settings, SNMP and remote support, stuff like that. Good stuff to know, not super important for the purposes of this demo, but just good to know. This cluster management gives you a lot of that information. Network configuration is an important part of this. So you can see as we build out networks, we build out groups, and in this group we have a DNS server that's configured. And then we have our subnets, right? So this subnet is built out here. It's a 192.168.1. 192.168.1.0, it's a /24, and it gives us our IP ranges of our pool that we created. And it's super simple to create a new pool. You essentially just add a group net, fill in the descriptions. You can add a DNS server, suffixes, enable DNS resolver. You can do all of that there. And then here down below, if you want to build if you need to build more, or you need to configure this or edit it, you just click on that on the side, and it gives you all the information there. So this is where you would build out your networking portion. There's an internal networking tab that you could fill out here, DNS cache and other settings. So there are other settings in here as well. Health check is great. That gives you an update on how the health of the system is, and then lifecycle management, like we talked before. This is where you would go to do upgrading, and then any patches or firmware updates that you would need to do would happen here in these sections. So the file system here is where you would create storage pools or quotas. File system explorer, you could explore all the different file systems, and the settings for data protection. Under data protection is where you can do snapshots, create snapshots, and you can do it. It's very highly configurable. You can configure snapshots, and this gives you a list of all the snapshots that you have going. So we would go here to snapshot schedules. Right now, there currently aren't any configured, but if I activated this snapshot IQ, it would give me the configurability to go ahead and create a snapshot, create a schedule for snapshots, and then decide when I want that snapshot to expire, so it doesn't just sit and hog up space on your storage. So that's data protection. Access, this is where you do all, you create your users and you provide your authentication, where you authenticate to your single sign-on stuff, users and permissions. The most important part of this for PowerScale is showing you the way that we can create shares, how easily you can. So under protocols, back on the earlier slide I was showing, I talked about how there's a bunch of different protocols that you can utilize. So you can do Hadoop, you can do Unix sharing through NFS, you can create Windows sharings and SMB shares. And so we'll do for Windows, since that's probably the most common one, you can see that there's a couple of them that are already here created. So if I wanted to create an SMB share, I just basically click on that SMB share button there, give it a share name. We'll just call it test. I can create a description if I wanted to. I can keep it as the root path here. I can give it a different path. And I can create an SMB share directory if it does not exist. Apply Windows default ACLs, and all those things that you need to configure there. And I just create a share. And there's my demo test share. And it's readily available. So if I go into view it, it gives me an idea of how it's configured. And then I can just go here to demo test. I could click it and I want to edit it. I'm going to edit it, and then you can do whatever else you need, like adding a member. So if I want to add permissions for somebody to access this, right, I can just go to add a member, select a member name, go to select a member, and then I can use groups, I can do domain admins, I can just do specific users. And here's where I would select the provider. In this system, we just have an Active Directory domain that's just called demo.local. I select that there and I go to search, and it will show me the users. These are the groups, but if I wanted to do it by user, I could do it specifically by user, click search. And there's a bunch of them here, right? So I can select this one here, and this person here now has permissions to that SMB share. And then you just give them full control, read, write, whatever it is that you want to give them access to, you do that here. So in this case, we can give them full control, add the member, they're there now. Then I save my changes, and my SMB share has been created, and I've also granted access to a user to now access that from their desktop or wherever they are, whatever device they're using, right? So it's a very intuitive interface, and it's very easy to use. And that is in a nutshell what PowerScale looks like. So are there any questions on PowerScale we can answer now before I'm going to shift to PowerStore?
No questions yet.
Okay, perfect. So bear with me just a second here. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Let me pull up my PowerStore here. Okay, hold on. I'm having some technical difficulties here. Bear with me for just a second. There we go. Okay. So let me share this back out. Okay. Can you see the PowerStore Manager screen? Okay.
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. So PowerStore, as we shift gears to PowerStore, what we're looking at now is our PowerStore that's in the Solution Center. And the PowerStore is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to just here. So PowerStore, also another storage solution. Okay, so with PowerStore, we can do things that are a little bit different, like the PowerStore and I was talking about earlier in the demo, that we can do the apps on, and we can do a hypervisor deployment, so you can actually run apps on the storage array itself. But here what we're looking at again is the dashboard. It looks a little bit different than the 1FS PowerScale dashboard. But similar concepts here. So on our dashboard, what we're looking at here is we have both block and file capabilities for storage inside of this PowerStore. And this is sitting in our demo center in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And so in this appliance here, we can see that we have block and file. If I click on this tab here, it gives me my capacity. Right now, there's only 2.6% used because this is a demo unit and we're not pushing it very hard, but we do have on the bottom right hand a widget here that says your top consumers, which is a widget that is very helpful in situations that I've had to go in and figure out what's going on or troubleshoot. This tells you that these are your top consumers, and this is just testball 001. It's using, it's provisioned for 100 gigs, right? It's only using 87 megabytes, so it's not really doing a lot. But there may be cases where you need to see who is hogging up the storage and why. Well, maybe they're holding a bunch of snapshots that are over a year old, and you need to clear those out. That can hog up and just really clog up your storage. So that top consumers widget is very helpful. On the left-hand side, there's a widget that says data savings. It shows you your data savings that we were talking about, guaranteeing that 4:1. Right now, it says you have saved 2.9 terabytes of user data. So we're at a 4.2 to 1 ratio for our savings, space savings, so data reduction. So logically, we're using 3.8 terabytes, but through data reduction, we're physically only using just shy of a terabyte, 922 gigs. And then there's a piece here of historical usage. And the cool thing about this historical usage here, and if this were more of a production environment, this would look a whole lot different. But if I can just click and drag, anything that I click and drag in there will show me like a historical usage of you can see here that it shows 150, just over a terabyte of usage during that time. So this is what's this line here shows the physical usage, and then the dot here is the heavy line at the bottom is actually what's being used, and then there's also a forecasted amount that can be used. So this is all very good information as you're managing your PowerStore. And then the last tab on the right shows your performance, and this shows you the latency versus the IOPS and the bandwidth. And again, I can highlight an area like that and it will break it out and show me a little more in depth. If I go to reset zoom, I'll show you that again. It's just a left click and highlight. And then it shows me that right there, specifically what I highlighted, what's going on during that time frame, what my IOPS look like, if there's any latency, and the kind of bandwidth that I'm utilizing. And you can see it's all fairly balanced right now. And you can change these settings from the last hour to the last 24 hours, last 2 years, all the way up to the last 2 years. So there's a lot of analytics involved. You can see a lot of good information here just on this dashboard area with these 3 tabs. So we'll just kind of move along these tabs at the top here. And so you have a monitoring tab. This one's great. It's not super exciting from a demo perspective, but it shows you monitoring that, hey, root partition usage of node A is at 100%. Tells you the resource type, last time it was updated, and it gives you a timestamp. So this is monitoring is great for troubleshooting. It gives you events. It shows you all the events that have been happening on your storage unit. And then any scheduled jobs that you have within the last 24 hours or week or month, or you can do a custom range. So next we'll go to compute, and we can go to hosts and groups. And you can see that we have an FX2 cluster that is connected to this PowerStore, and then also an ESXi cluster that's connected to the PowerStore. And these are connected over iSCSI protocol. And then these are the actual clusters here that are running ESXi. These are the nodes that are running ESXi. So currently we have 4 hosts that are connected and accessing the storage on the PowerStore. And you can even go granular to virtual machines. Right now we don't have it listed as virtual machines. because the important thing about this compute section here is to go to your vCenter server connection. Right now, we don't have it configured to connect to the vCenter server, but once you have manually registered your VASA provider, then you can connect to your vCenter, and you can manage it from either here, or you can go to your vCenter and manage the PowerStore through a plugin in vCenter. So really, really great stuff. Makes it a lot easier to manage all the different moving parts of your data center. In storage, we'll go to this volumes portion here. And you can see that we've had a few users create some volumes here. Patrick is out there creating vvols. That's awesome. So if you want to create a volume, it's just as simple as this. You go to this storage portion here, drop down, and you click volumes. And then I'm going to click create. And I'm going to call it test volume. Well, there's too many of those. Let's call it demo test vol. Okay, we can give a description if I want, quantity. I'm going to build 4 of them, and I'm going to make each of them, I'm going to make each of them 10 gigs. I can select them. I can put them into an associated volume group. So you can create a volume group that you can apply changes to globally, or they can just be standalone volumes. Protection policies, we're not going to do any on this, but you could have it set to have snapshots. And then volume performance policy, you can make it high, medium, or low. And in this case, we're just going with the default of medium because this is just a demo. Next, and then I'm going to finish. Or next. Looks like I'm frozen here. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Yeah, and then I'm going to select the hosts or groups to be mapped to the volume. So here's the ESXi cluster that I have, or the FX2 cluster. I'm going to connect it to that cluster, and I'm going to say okay. And right now it's building out those volumes, and you'll be able to see them here in just a second once it gets through building them. Okay, great. And create. Okay, and then we'll just give it a refresh here. There we go. So there's my demo test volume, all 4 of them. They're all provisioned as 10 gigs. Right now, I'm not using any of them. The performance policy is at a medium. They're not attached to any volume groups, and they don't have any protection policies attached to them currently because they're just demo test volumes. So very easy, very simple to use, very user friendly. Even if you are in a situation where you don't have a staff that is very experienced with these technologies, very simple to pick up and quick and easy to learn. You can see how fast it took me to just build out 4 test volumes there and attach them to an ESXi cluster. So we'll move on just to protection here, and you can see that we have 2 different types of protection. We can do replication, and we can also do snapshot protection. So we'll look at replication. Right now, we don't have any replications, but you can set up replication to connect to another PowerStore unit, and you can set it up to either be asynchronous, or you can do it manually, replicate data over manually, or you can set up a schedule and have it be asynchronous. Let's look next at migration. And migration, what's cool about migration is that if I want to create a migration, if I want to migrate data, I can migrate data from not only from another PowerStore to another, from one PowerStore to another, but I can do it from other units. So it gives you the ability to do it from several different storage types out there, different storage vendors and their specific hardware, and you can schedule a migration to go from that hardware to your PowerStore. So it makes migration a snap, and it's very simple. And migrations tend to take a little while, so it's not great for demo purposes, which is why we don't have it set up here. But you have the capability with PowerStore to move workloads or data from a different vendor's solution. Maybe you're just getting rid of that vendor and you're coming to Dell with PowerStore. You can migrate all that data over all through this PowerStore console here. And then lastly, we'll just touch on the hardware here. So this hardware tab is very helpful as well. It shows you the appliances. It gives you an idea of the ports right here that are on the appliance itself and the health of it. You can see the green check marks. But the cool thing about appliances is if I click on it, it gives me a lot of data. It gives me the capacity of the appliance. It gives me the performance, the alerts, the ports, the hardware. It gives me an actual physical view of the hardware. Okay, so here are all my drives. If I click on a drive, it'll give me the specific data just about that drive. And this is great to see when you have to like actually, when you have an issue with a drive or you have a bad drive, here's where you can actually take that drive and get the information you need to replace it. And then you can go through the process of replacing a drive. So these are the drives. You can also blink the LED so that if you need to go in the physical data center to see which drive that is, you can see it in the data center blinking. So this just gives you a list of all the drives, and that's the front view. Then we can switch to looking at a rear view of the unit. And the rear view gives us, other great stuff. So here's a power supply, right? And then here's if I click on this, it tells me here's my ports, right? And it gives you the link state of those ports. You can click on all of these things. So this module here is empty, right? There's an empty slot. Here's an embedded module, the IO personality module right here, and gives you all the information you need, serial number, part number, etc. Here's another power supply. There's just a lot that you can do. You can actually click on an individual port itself, and it will tell you the status of that link, of that port. Here's another port, right? It says its speed is right now, it's connected. The link is up. It's got 10 gigabits throughput. It's an SFP, so it's a fiber connection. I mean, it's very intuitive. You can use this, and it's great for troubleshooting. It allows you to see everything. And then lastly, you can take an internal view look at your node. And then we start getting pretty granular here, but you can look and see all of your different RAM slots. Here, this DIMM slot right here has lit up. Or adversely, I can click on the slot itself, and it'll give me the information. So that gives you an idea of what PowerStore is, what it can do, all the different management functions of it, and just the flexibility that you have in running this in your data center. And hopefully that's giving you a good overview of all those things. And that's all I have for a demo for today. If there are any questions, please, now's the time to go ahead and ask those questions. I'll turn it over to Megan. And if we don't have any other questions, I appreciate your time. And like I said, if you want more information, you can get that by going to sterling.com/calendar for a list of all our other demos, or you can reach out to us specifically to get demos done. So I'll turn the time over to Megan, and I'll put up a slide here that shows the different demos and ways to contact us.
Great, thanks, Greg. No questions at this time, so I think that means you explained it extremely well, right? Thank you, everybody, so much for coming today. We will, Greg, if we have the slide on, there we go. Please feel free to reach out to us at any of these email aliases if you have any questions. If you would like a recording of the demo, you can reach out to us or visit our website and go to the Proven Performance page. Please let us know if you have any questions, and have a great day.